2004 and snowing in Sedona. I was planning to drive up to Flagstaff to go ice skating, but Oak Creek Canyon was closed. I was still in the process of moving into my place, so I went next door to the Raven Heart coffee shop to get my favorite large Linda latte. I often went to this place, so all the people knew me there and I knew them. But as I stood at the pickup counter, I glanced to my right and saw a very handsome man looking at me. I had never seen this guy before. Today, I will be reading to you from chapter 25 of Guided, The Wedding. So sit back and relax as I tell the story about how, despite the dysfunction, my spirit guides took me on one journey after another that led to a greater understanding of myself. And here's my book, Guided. It's available on Amazon and Audible and iTunes. You can get it in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook format, and I read the book. All right, so here we go. Chapter 25. The day of our wedding arrived. We awoke to find it was indeed a perfect, warm spring day, just like our guides had told us it would be 6 months earlier. It was like the parting of the seas in the Bible. This one day opened and it was magical. Ray was beginning to see how these predictions played out against all logic. Just one day before our wedding, the weather started to clear up. And the day after our wedding, the weather completely changed. The clouds moved in and it started pouring down rain again. But on January 1st, 2005, the roads were all clear and everyone made it to our wedding. It was like a warm spring day, just like the guides said it would be. Although this wasn't my first marriage, it was my first wedding. To recap, my first marriage was in front of a Nevada Justice of the Peace, a choice made by my mother. My second marriage was at the Chapel of the Bells in Las Vegas, Nevada. That was a choice made. We got married in jeans after a trade show, and a choice my husband had made. Neither one was memorable and definitely not special. This was different. It was our mutual choice, and thanks to our guides, we already knew it was going to be a stellar day, and it was. And here's some pictures of the wedding right here, you guys. How about that? All right. Ray and I found a love in each other that we each had only dreamed of. I was 52 years old and Ray was 53 on the date that we got married. It was completely out of character for me to marry someone just 10 months after meeting him. But Ray and I had that rare connection that transcends reasoning. We both have always relied on our intuition to guide us. And for the first time in our lives, we found our likeness and equal in each other. Everyone enjoyed themselves at the reception, and Ray's favorite jazz musicians from Prescott provided the live music. We had a wedding planner double the size of the dance floor because many of our friends were serious dancers like we were. It was an open bar with good food and an awesome wedding cake. Ray picked the wedding theme, colors, and even my dress. Got to show you the dress, you guys. There it is right there. Everyone got a fortune cookie containing messages that Ray and I had channeled from our guides. And I'll read them off. Love means always looking together in the same direction. A great marriage requires finding and being the right person. The best couples fall in love many times, always with the same person. There's no perfect couple, only those who are perfect for each other. Lasting love includes companionship with your best friend. Our wedding and the reception had an impact on our community. It seemed to set off a charge of hope and inspiration to those who were sitting on the fence about their own relationships. The result was an avalanche of marriages, just like our guides told us there would be. Lesson. When both of you have a relationship with your guides, everything in your relationship works. It's like nothing you have ever experienced in your life before. There are no secrets, conditions, or hidden agendas. Life just doesn't get any better than that. For the first time in your life, you will feel loved because you are appreciated for who you are and not who they want you to be. Right after we got married, we put Ray's house back on the market. It had been unaffected by the floods, which negated one objection, and the remodel eliminated the flaw that I had identified. I held an open house in February, got an offer in March, and closed escrow in May. Living at my place was working out great. As I indicated earlier, I had designed it with an amazing sound system, and here I was, married to a former musician who loved music as much as I did. There are just no accidents. Also, once again, everything had a his and hers arrangement. Even the office space did. We did really well together at my house, and it became our home. In June, we went to the high school graduation of Ray's son, Rex, in Texas. His plan was to start college in Arizona in the fall. Ray's mother, who Ray had been supporting since 2002, had Alzheimer's, and handling her care was emotionally and financially draining Ray, who took care of her every need. Now that Ray was going to have two significant financial obligations for an indefinite period of time, we needed to get serious about making money. I continued to design and redesign homes for clients, but this real estate market was cooling down. From our channeled readings, we knew it was headed for a crash. Even though I had my broker's license, because I knew what was coming, I couldn't bring myself to represent buyers or sellers. We didn't know what we were going to do for income, but it wasn't going to be real estate. In July of 2005, just 7 months after we got married, Cindy called us to say she had gotten fired from her job because she was sick. She told us she had stomach cancer and needed $1,750 a week for cancer treatments. She said she needed this money immediately because, having lost her job, she no longer had health insurance and needed to start treatments right away. She also told us she was going for more tests the next day. So we asked her to be sure to have the doctor send us a copy of the results. She never did. Ray had been an executive recruiter for over 25 years and had a lot of experience with human resources. In an effort to help Cindy, he asked her for everything he would need to investigate the situation because he knew an employee could not be fired just because they became ill. Then we called an attorney in Sacramento who specialized in employment law and made an appointment for Cindy to meet with him. When we let Cindy know that we had set this up for her, she changed her approach completely. She accused us of butting into her personal affairs and refused to meet with the attorney. At that point, We became suspicious. So Ray called her place of employment and discovered that she was still working there. Suddenly, we completely stopped hearing from Cindy. I called my granddaughter's stepmom and asked her about Cindy having stomach cancer. She said she didn't know anything about it. None of this really surprised Ray or me, and it just confirmed again that when it came to Cindy, we needed to be extremely cautious. Her manipulation and lying had now crossed the line. What was second nature for her in childhood and as a young adult now apparently had no boundaries. She had become ruthless. 2 months after the incident with Cindy, Hurricanes Katrina and Rita became news in New Orleans and Texas. My Uncle Charlie lived in Salisbury, Texas, right in Rita's path. It had been 23 years since I last saw him, but I called to check in on him the day before Rita was projected to hit. He was living in the house he had lived in seemingly forever, though his sister-in-law and her husband were staying with him because he was 90 years old and couldn't be on his own. He told me he was staying put. Rita or no Rita. Those Texans can be tough, stubborn people. And invited us to come to Texas for his 91st birthday, the coming July. We told him we would be delighted to celebrate with him and asked him to call us after Rita passed through. Then we waited to hear back from Uncle Charlie. The utilities were down and the town was devastated. We had no idea how he had done or even if he had made it. Finally, we got a call. The house had weathered the storm, but Uncle Charlie had to relocate to Houston for a month while things got restored in Salisbury. Uncle Charlie was looking forward to seeing us for his birthday. We were very relieved and went back to pulling things together in our life. The trip to Salisbury being the only travel on our radar, at least as far as we knew then. A few weeks later, in a channeling session on September 2nd, 2005, the guides came through with this message. Very soon, both of you will take trip to Ohio. And we asked, why? And they said, Betty to fail. Betty is Ray's mom, the one who has Alzheimer's. At that time, Betty, Ray's mom, was not sick, nor had she been sick. In another channeling session we did a month later, they told us, Ray to become rich when son, a brown tabby, shows up. We were not planning on getting another cat, so that didn't make any sense at all. Awareness. Sometimes you may not understand what your guides are telling you. Don't worry about it. Just keep your eyes open. Sooner or later, it will all make sense. Uncle Charlie, Ray, and I are all Leos, born in late July and early August. Leos are known to be flamboyant and blah, 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 blah. Leos are known to be flamboyant and fun-loving. And Ray always says, it's not a party until the Leos show up, all right? We had stayed in touch with Uncle Charlie since the hurricane, and were very much looking forward to seeing him. While we were preparing for our trips, some friends told us about a new litter of kittens, thinking that our first cat, Leon, would need a companion. Leon had won my heart when I first saw him, so we adopted him. Then he decided he was Ray's cat. Traitor. Benny the cat was born March 15th, 2006. and we visited him for the first time when he was just 3 weeks old. So while we hadn't planned it, getting a second kitty had been decided for us. The brown tabby we had been told about just 5 months earlier by our spirit guides had shown up. In a channeling session on July 12th, 2006, we asked about how Ray's mother was doing. The guides came through with this message for Ray. Slowing down, leg pain, walker needed. Her passing will be between 2007 and 2008. Betty doesn't know which son you are, Ray. All at once, you see light there in your dream. Quiet passing. And then we said, see Betty? Go see Betty? And they said, yes, go in September. Until this channeling session, we had no idea that we would be going to Ohio, which coincidentally would turn out to be the same time we would need to be in Pennsylvania. But we didn't even know that then. But with this news, we decided to plan the trip just 2 months after visiting Uncle Charlie in Texas. In early spring, Ray started having dreams about a fire that would come dangerously close to our house. We weren't too concerned about it because our guides had told us our property would be fine. The week we were leaving in July to visit Uncle Charlie, there was a raging fire in Sedona, so large it made national news. But again, our guides reassured us that we would be good to go because air quality was going to be terrible for a while and that our property would be unaffected. And I'm going to show you the photo that we took of this fire taken off the second floor deck of our house the day we left for Texas. Right there. Before leaving to visit Uncle Charlie, his sister-in-law told us he saw my dad walking up to his front door. He told her to open the door and let him in. Then she told my Uncle Charlie that Randy, my father, had died 30 years ago. Uncle Charlie was embarrassed. But we knew that Uncle Charlie did indeed see my dad. Things like that often happen when someone's time is getting short. Knowing that our house would be safe, thanks to the reassurance from our guides, we headed off to Texas. It would be Ray's first time meeting Uncle Charlie. After the greetings were over, my uncle suddenly blurted out something about my dad being married to someone named Anne. I knew my mother's name wasn't Anne. Uncle Charlie looked a little sheepish and mumbled that he thought everyone knew about it. I sure didn't know my dad had been married to anyone but my mom. He wasn't particularly happy about letting the cat out of the bag. I pressed Uncle Charlie for details. I told him that family secrets left me with a big void in my life, and I had to understand what really happened to get a better perspective on my early life. So he reluctantly said he would be telling me what he knew. It turned out that he knew a lot. He said all three boys, my dad, his brother, and he, were called to service in World War II. He remembered a letter my dad wrote him saying he didn't like it in the Navy and wanted to come home and get back to his life. My dad's service in the military took him through Northern California, and that's when my dad decided that was where he wanted to live, completely on the other side of the United States from New Jersey. He said that my dad and Anne were married in 1945 and lived in New Jersey where my dad had built their house. Soon after they got married, they came to visit Uncle Charlie in Texas. They were pulling a travel trailer, something very few people had in those days. So that was a big deal. Apparently, they were traveling around the country. What an adventure that must have been in those days. In 1948, Uncle Charlie heard that my dad had moved out to California, to Sacramento, California, with a new woman he had met on the boardwalk in Atlantic City just 2 weeks earlier. He just left Anne, never got a divorce, and Anne never heard from my dad again. No one ever knew why he left her. Uncle Charlie said he didn't know anything more until he visited my dad and his new family in California in 1952. Tip: the older people get, the less they guard family secrets. They recognize that much of what people are trying to protect in this world in the greater scheme of things, is essentially nonsense. They're closer to going back to the source, which is the truth and love they came from. That's why many times they will unwittingly provide clarity to those who need it most just before they leave, like he did with me. This book would have never been written had I not visited Uncle Charlie and all those family secrets started coming out. It wasn't just from him, but you're going to hear about it in the subsequent chapters 26, 27, 28 that tell the rest of this story, which is, it's crazy what happens. All right. Okay. It still blows my mind. Okay. And so, Ray, what did you call it? You said it's as crazy as what?
Your family is crazier than Montel and Jerry Springer put together.
I agree. Once it all came out, I didn't find any of this out until I was in my 50s. Amazing. Okay, so next Saturday, November 14th. Is that right? The 14th?
Today is
The 7th? Okay.
Yeah.
November 14th at 1 p.m. Pacific time, I will read to you from chapter 26 of Guided. A lifetime of family secrets unravels. Don't miss it, you guys. This one is like what Ray said. You don't want to miss it. We really enjoyed our 3-day visit with Uncle Charlie. With that, I had learned from Uncle Charlie, I had more questions than answers about my family history. Ray and I talked about it and thought we should do our own investigation once we got back to Sedona. Upon our return home, we got a call from Cindy. She told us that Mom was diagnosed with lung cancer and had about 6 months to live. Knowing that my mom had a short time to live, I went right to work on investigating the family situation. It was no longer a should-do situation. It was now a have-to-do urgent matter. Time was short. I just didn't know how revealing it would become. So until then, remember, you have help. You are never alone. And always